Welcome back to our journey through the Bible. Have you ever been so hungry that you started romanticizing a terrible past? That's exactly what happened to the Israelites. The thrill of crossing the Red Sea had worn off, and the harsh reality of the wilderness was setting in. Just 3 days in, they found water at a place called Marah, but it was bitter, undrinkable. The people immediately started grumbling against Moses. What are we supposed to drink? God, in his grace, showed Moses a piece of wood. When Moses threw it into the water, it miraculously turned sweet. They journeyed on to a beautiful oasis named Elim, with 12 springs and 70 palm trees. It was a brief, refreshing pause, but they couldn't stay there forever. Their journey led them next into the vast and empty desert of sin, and that's when the real crisis hit. A month and a half after leaving Egypt, their food supplies were gone. The entire nation was starving. The grumbling started again, this time louder and more desperate, aimed at Moses and his brother Aaron. If only we had died by the Lord's hand back in Egypt. At least there we had pots of meat and all the food we wanted. You've brought us out here to starve us all to death. They were looking back at their brutal slavery, their oppression, the constant threat of death, and all they could remember was the food. But that's what extreme hunger does. It twists your memory and suffocates your gratitude. They forgot the whips and remembered the onions. Moses was frustrated, but God was patient. He heard their cries, not just their complaints. He told Moses, "I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day and gather just enough for that day. This will be a test to see if they will follow my instructions." That very evening, a massive flock of quail descended on the camp. Suddenly, they had meat to eat. The next morning, as the dew evaporated, the desert ground was covered with thin white flakes like frost. The Israelites stared at it, completely bewildered. What is it? They asked each other. In Hebrew, that question sounds like manhu, and that's how this mysterious food got its name, manna. Moses explained, "This is the bread the Lord has given you to eat." And here, that's the rule. Everyone should gather just as much as they need for their family, one over, about 2 liters per person. So the people went out to gather. Some gathered a lot, others just a little. When they went back to their tents and measured it, everyone had the perfect amount. The one who gathered a lot had no extra, and the one who gathered a little had no shortage. God's provision was perfect. Then Moses gave another instruction. Don't save any of it for tomorrow. Some people didn't listen. They thought, what if it's not here tomorrow? I'd better save some, just in case. They tried to hoard it. The next morning, they woke up to a foul smell. The manna they had saved was rotten and crawling with maggots. Moses was angry. They had to learn to trust. Every morning, they gathered what they needed for that day. As the sun grew hotter, any leftover manna on the ground would simply melt away. Then came another test. On the 6th day, they were instructed to gather twice the usual amount. Why? Because the 7th day was the Sabbath, a day of rest dedicated to the Lord. There would be no manna on the Sabbath. And just as God said, when they kept the extra portion from the 6th day, it stayed fresh for the 7th. It didn't rot. Predictably, some people went out on the Sabbath morning anyway, looking for manna. They found nothing. The Lord said to Moses, "How long will you people refuse to keep my commands? Don't you see? The Lord has given you the Sabbath. That's why he gives you 2 days' worth of bread on the 6th day. For 40 years, This miracle continued. 6 days a week, God sent bread from heaven. 40 years of daily lessons in faith. What did this manna teach Israel? First, God provides exactly what we need for today. Not an overwhelming surplus, not a painful deficit, just enough. His provision is perfectly measured for our daily needs. Second, God's provision requires our participation. He rained down the manna, but the people had to get up, go out, and gather it. Faith isn't passive. It involves action. Third, trying to hoard God's gifts reveals a lack of trust. Saving extra manna was a way of saying, I don't believe you'll be there for me tomorrow, God. True trust means letting go of our need to control everything. Fourth, rest is not a suggestion. It's a command. God built the Sabbath right into the system of His provision. Even in the middle of a desert, in the struggle for survival, rest was sacred. And finally, daily dependence builds faith. If God had given them a year's supply all at once, they might have thanked Him and then forgotten about Him until the food ran out. This daily rhythm of need and provision kept them constantly aware of Him and His unwavering faithfulness. Centuries later, Jesus would echo this profound lesson. He taught His followers to pray, "Give us this day our daily bread." He was pointing back to the manna, reminding us to trust God for today's needs without being consumed by anxiety for tomorrow. Even more powerfully, Jesus declared, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry." The manna was a physical provision that pointed to a greater spiritual reality. It was a picture of Jesus Himself, the true bread from heaven, who came down to give eternal life to the world. The Israelites ate manna for 40 years, right up until they crossed the Jordan River and entered the Promised Land. The very day after they ate the first produce from the land of Canaan, the manna stopped. Its purpose was fulfilled. God's miraculous daily provision had sustained them all the way home. Every morning in the wilderness, the Israelites woke up to a desert floor covered in evidence of God's faithfulness. Each day was a fresh reminder. God will provide. We just need to trust Him. Thanks for watching. If this story encouraged you, please like the video and subscribe for more. See you in the next one.